Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. In previous class, we learned that a word in English language will give us 5 kinds of information. And from that 5, we focus more on the second information, which is morphological information of a word, which means the structure of a word. And we learned that a word can be made out of one part or more than one parts. And we learned some examples for each. So the word sleep is made out of one part. There is no extra fittings in that word. But the word homework or whenever, which is made out of 2 parts, which are when and ever, home and work. And ungentlemanliness, which is made out of 4 parts. And lastly, we asked 4 questions which we have to answer. So we will answer first 2 questions here in this chapter, and the remaining 2 questions will be answered in coming chapters. So the first 2 questions that we have to answer today are: how do we decide how many parts a word has? And the second one, what are the criteria for defining what a word is? So after completing this lesson, you will find out the answer for these questions, and you will learn how to divide a word into different parts and what are the criteria for dividing words into different parts. So watch this video completely and you will get the answer for these questions. So we can start with the criteria for dividing words into parts. So there are 2 criteria for dividing words into parts. First one, whenever a word is made out of 2 or more parts which also occur independently as words, we can divide that word into parts. It means if you get a word and if you look closely into that word and you find out some parts into that word, and those parts will also occur as an independent word, then you can divide that word into parts. For example, if you got a word homework, and when you look closely into that word, you can find out there are 2 different parts which are home and work. Both those parts occur independently in English, so we can divide that word homework into 2 different parts which are home and work. And another example, younger. If you look into that word, you will find out a part which occur independently, which is young, but we didn't find er or comes as an independent word in English. So according to this criteria, we can divide younger into 2 different parts. But in coming part, we will learn the criteria for dividing words like younger. Now we can go to the second criteria, which is a word can be divided into 2 or more parts if the parts occur in other words. It means that if you get a word and if we look closely into that word, we can get 2 or more parts which also occur independently as a word in English, like younger or helps. So in younger, we will get a word which comes independently in English, which is young. And also in helps, we will get one word which occur independently in English language, which is help. But we don't use or as an independent word in English. So here we have to look closely and we have to search if that word which doesn't occur independently in English language also comes with any other words usually. So if that part occur many times with many other words, then we can divide that word into 2 different parts. So we will divide the word which comes as an independent word as one part, and the remaining part, if that word comes regularly with any other words, then we can make that the other part of that word. For example, the in younger, which also comes with helper, sleeper, kicker, killer. So there is a regularity in the coming of in English language. So we can divide younger into two parts, which are young and er. And another example is yes in the helps. So we divide help because help comes as an independent word. Then we have to find out is the yes is a regular used part in English language, and if you search you will get that yes comes after sleeps, hits, kicks and many other verbs in English language when subject is singular. So we can divide the word helps into two. The first part as help, second part as yes. And when we discussed the second criteria for dividing words into parts, we discussed that we have to look if that part is a regular used part in English language. So we have to understand what is the criteria for this regularity. And there are two cases, or there are two conditions for the regularity in English language. The first one is that if that part which comes regular gives an extra meaning to the word, then we can make sure that it is a regular used part in English language. For example, the word or the part in brothers gives an extra meaning of plural in English language, and also the part in younger also gives an extra meaning of comparative. So we can make sure that the in brothers and the in younger is a regular used part in English language. And the second criteria for regularity is not based on meaning, but it is based on grammar. So if that extra part has any kind of grammatical function, then we can make sure that it is also a regular used part in English language, and according to that we can divide a word which come with this extra used word into different parts. For example, the part in helps, which came for grammatical rule, which is if you are using a simple present and your subject is a singular, then you have to add an s in the verb. So that s is used for a grammatical function. So we can divide the word helps into two different parts. The part of help, because help comes as an independent word, and the part of yes because it is a regular used part in English language. And we find out it is a regular used part because the part yes is used for a grammatical function. Until now we used the word part or structural part or element for dividing words into parts, but in morphology the word morpheme is used for the part or structural part or element. So we can learn a definition for morpheme. So morpheme is the smallest meaningful element of a language, or the smallest unit which is grammatically significant. So we are given two different definition for morpheme here. First one, smallest unit which is meaningful. The second one, smallest unit which is grammatically significant. We defined morpheme with the two definition because sometimes some parts don't have a meaning, but they have a grammatical function, like yes in helps. So that is don't have a correct meaning, but it represent for a meaning. It has a function of a grammar. That's why we defined morpheme in two definitions. So the part help in helps gives us a meaningful part. The part has a grammatical function. According to these two definitions, we can divide morpheme into two: the free morpheme and bound morpheme. So in next slide, we will discuss about these two morphemes. The free morpheme means a part which can occur by themselves, like when and ever in whenever and brother in brothers. So that part which can occur independently is called free morpheme. The second morpheme is bound morpheme, those parts which cannot occur independently or by themselves, like is in helps or are in younger or is in brothers. Now we know what a morpheme is and what are the two different classification for morpheme is. Then based on this classification of morpheme, we can categorize words into three different categories. The first one, simple word, which is a word made up of a single morpheme, like tame, brother, table are some examples for simple word. The second category for words is compound word, which is made out of two or more free morpheme, not bound morpheme but made out of free morpheme, like homework and whenever. So the parts in homework and whenever, both parts in homework and whenever is made out of two independently occurring morpheme or two free morphemes, so it is a compound word. Then lastly, complex word, which is a word made up of one free morpheme and one or more bound morphemes, like disallow, there is a one free morpheme which is allow and one bound morpheme which is dis. And another example, kindness, there kind is a free morpheme and ness is a bound morpheme. So in short, today we learned criteria for dividing words into two different parts, and also we learned the definition for morpheme and two different categories of morpheme, which are free morpheme and bound morpheme. And lastly, we learned three categories of words, which are simple word, compound word and complex words, and we learned some examples. In coming class, we will learn how to combine different parts to make a new word, inshallah.